Okay, this is Orlando Wilson. And what I want to talk about in this video is something that's popped up in the media in the past few days. Again, reference the US going into Mexico to deal with the threat of the Mexican drug cartels. This is all breaking in the media again, and there's politicians barking about this again because some American citizens were abducted, two were killed in northern Mexico. They drove into a narco shootout, and such is life. Shit happens, right? It makes me laugh that the US, especially the US media, ignores anything to do with Mexico unless American citizens are killed, abducted, etc. Why do they ignore it? Well, there's not much reporting going on the issues in Mexico coming out of Mexico because reporters tend to be killed. And I don't think many in the US want to admit of what a mess Mexico is in at the moment as far as the drug cartels, or admit how powerful the drug cartels are at the moment. It makes me laugh that the US is busy waging war in be it Iraq, Afghanistan, now in Ukraine, etc., but it's not acknowledging the issues that's going on in Mexico. They cry about human rights violations in other places. How many people are raped, chopped up, disappeared on a daily basis in Mexico, and nobody cares? And this is right next to the United States. I see in the media now everybody's making a big fuss because some unarmed Ukrainian soldier was executed by supposed Russian troops. Okay, such is life. It's all part of being a soldier. How many people are literally chopped up in little pieces in Mexico on a daily basis? That guy was killed quickly. I saw the video. How many people die very, very slowly in Mexico on a daily basis? Nobody cares. But the fact this is on the US doorstep, it seems strange that US is not interested. Literally not interested. Until a couple of US citizens are killed, then everybody wants to invade Mexico. Okay, what would happen? What can the US do about the drug cartels and the issues in Mexico? Well, I'm sure if the US military went into Mexico, there'd be clashes with the US military. Sorry, with the Mexican military. There'd be conventional warfare clashes. Can the US military go in and take and hold ground in Mexico? Sure, the US military is a very strong military. Is it prepared to do that? Is it prepared to lose the troops? And again, this would be a very dirty guerrilla warfare. The narcos, the cartels, are they going to happily stand by while the US military rolls into Mexico? I can't see it. And the thing is, the Mexican drug cartels are very well organized and very well-run businesses, but they're also very well-run paramilitary organizations. They have their intelligence wings, they have their shooters, they have their logistics, etc. They're well-armed and they're well-funded. Going back in the day, they were recruiting from special forces from throughout Latin America. They pay a lot better. I'm sure there's plenty of criminals and former military personnel coming up from other Latin American countries, namely Venezuela. I also heard rumors that there's plenty of FARC members coming up and also working with the cartels. That works both ways as far as assisting with trafficking and also assisting with doing their dirty work. So I think if the US moved against the cartels aren't going to sit back and take it. The narcos have a large network within the US already. For example, think about how could the narcos have such a network within the US if certain people within US government and US law enforcement weren't already paid off and looking the other way to their activities? I'm sure a lot of people will be surprised how many people within US law enforcement are actually paid off by the narcos or their associates. The narcos have a large distribution network within the US. They have, as an example for intelligence gathering, how many years ago now? There was reports going out that MS-13 were actively surveilling and gathering intelligence on law enforcement members in the US, who they were, what shifts they worked, where they lived, etc. MS-13 works for the cartels. MS-13 aren't as sophisticated as the cartels, but they make good foot soldiers. How many other gangbangers would rally to the narco flag if the narcos decided to, how can we put it, start an insurgency within the US? I think the numbers would be pretty high, especially if they were paying. Is US law enforcement ready to deal with such a threat? No. I'm sure, of course, there's plenty of good people within US law enforcement that would most probably do everything they possibly could to stop the threat. Are they trained to deal with the threat, or do they have the mentality to deal with the threat of an insurgency, a narco war going on within the US? Definitely not. From my perspective, many years ago when I was in the British military, during the Troubles in Northern Ireland, it was taken for granted that anybody in the British military, in the RUC, which was Northern Irish Police, UDR, was going to be targeted off duty. The IRA, the Irish terrorists, targeted off-duty troops, British troops in Europe, in UK, etc. How many US police officers know how to search their car for an IED? How many US police officers would be happy if on a daily basis they had to check their cars for IEDs whenever they were left unattended? I've heard it that people feel safe in the US when they see a police car in their neighborhood, they got a cop living there, etc. Would those people feel so safe if that cop could be targeted by sicarios, could be targeted by narcos on a daily basis? Would they feel so safe if they saw that cop having to search his car every day for IEDs because he could have left it unattended, she could have left it unattended, and at night some narco come in and put a bomb under their car? This is what the US is not prepared for. The narcos are very powerful. They have their networks. They have what could be called an army within the US already, just among the people they have moving their drugs and the people they have distributing their drugs. This has been let happen. This is not something that's happened overnight. So this is where, as I said, I see if the US moves against Mexico or moves against the narcos, they're going to be bringing trouble onto US soil. And I don't think, well, I know the US is not prepared for such problems. US law enforcement is not prepared for such problems. But this is the problems that will most likely occur if the US starts targeting the cartels hard. What's going on at the moment, it's they've been allowed to flourish. The other thing with the narcos, they're international. And I'm sure if I see this issue, so do other people. Everybody's talking about China being a threat. Could the narcos, could the Mexican drug cartels be a good ally for the Chinese military, Chinese intelligence? Yeah, 100%. They're already working together. Where does the fentanyl come from that's going into the US? China. How does it get in? Well, it comes in through the ports, but there's a hell of a lot of it going into the Pacific coast of Mexico and then making its way up across the Mexican border into the US. Think about now if the Chinese decided to supply more weapons to the narcos and more drugs to the narcos. Again, the narcos already have an army within the US. So, I hope that gives you a few things to think about. And again, it's crazy to think the narcos have been allowed to flourish as much as they have and gain as much power as they have, because I don't see anything good coming from it. Not for the US at least. So, as I said, I hope this gives you something to think about. So, follow along my other videos. I'm sure there'll be more on this topic coming out in the near future. So be good, stay safe, and stay out of trouble.